Assalamualaikum semua dan selamat malam. Okay, sekali lagi kita kembali ke episod 5 Jiwa Let's Talk series dan pada malam ini kita ada Profesor Madya Dr Geshina Ayu Mat Saat. Okey, untuk pengetahuan anda semua, Profesor Madya Dr Geshina Ayu Mat Saat adalah seorang penyair, penulis, penyelidik, ahli psikologi dan ahli kriminologi. Kepakaran beliau dalam bidang psikologi dan kriminologi telah diiktiraf di United Kingdom, Indonesia, Thailand dan Singapura dan beliau pernah merangkul pelbagai anugerah dan pelantikan sejak tahun 2014 lagi. Okay. Alright, apart from lecturing and conducting research of national interest, Profesor Madya Dr Geshina membantu PDRM, Jabatan Penjara Malaysia dan agensi kerajaan lain membuat dokumentari mengenai jenayah dan penjenayah dan aktif menyebarkan pencegahan jenayah dalam komuniti di peringkat antarabangsa dan tempatan. Jadi pada malam ini, Dr Geshina Ayu akan sama-sama memberikan perkongsian dan penceramahan mengenai the psyche of sexual predators. Tanpa membuang masa lagi, saya akan menjemput Dr Geshina Ayu, Profesor Madya Dr Geshina Ayu. Assalamualaikum Prof. Apa khabar?
Salam, khabar baik, alhamdulillah.
Okey. Jadi, Prof, pada malam ini kita akan membincangkan tentang the psyche of sexual predators. Adakah Prof sudah bersedia?
Okey, dah, okey.
Okey, alright. Jadi, tanpa kita membuang masa lagi, sebentar ya. Kita akan teruskan dengan episod kita pada hari ini. Alright.
Okay, Assalamualaikum semua. Thank you to Joel for giving me this opportunity. Saya ingin mohon daripada Atika untuk kongsikan dulu di poll. Please take part in that poll. Okay, it will be very useful for this session. Nak tengok setakat mana kefahaman netizens di luar tu mengenai siapa ni pemangsa jenayah seksual, or other words known as sex predators. So that poll is dalam dua bahasa. You have a choice of English or Malay. Okay, there's no right or wrong answer. Just isi. So you need to isi your gender and your age. Let's proceed with the 10 questions or statements. Okay, Atika, can we proceed with that? So while we wait for the rest to come in,
Okay.
let's go. Yes, Atika, boleh?
Alright. Untuk poll tadi, Prof see a few things dulu. Nanti saya akan set upkan and it will be live on the Facebook.
Okay, alright. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that poll is actually very much relevant to the topic that we're going to go through today, which is psyche of sex predators. If you have any questions, please do prepare them and I'll try to answer setakat mana yang boleh masa yang cukup singkat ini. Thank you for joining us. Waktu ni dah pukul 8.30 pun. Maybe some of you are thinking to have an early night, but this is a very important discussion. So while you're having your tea or your dinner or even your coffee, please spend a few moments thinking about the way that children, that some people right now, at this minute, while I'm talking, are in dread, are in fear of the next few hours. Because this is when the sex predators are going to be taking the opportunity to molest, to rape them. Okay, so think about them that they're facing right now while we're talking. It may be later tonight, it can be early in this morning. So it is very important for us to think about this. We should stop blaming the victims. It is not the victim's fault. And we need to understand the psyche of sex predators to have a better understanding what we're against. So Atika, next slide, please. So this is the poll that that will be uploaded in Facebook to see your responses. There's only 10. As I mentioned, ada dua bahasa. It is in English and Malay. So answer yes or no. There's no wrong or right answer for you. So moving on. When we look into elements of sex predator psyche. Psyche ni, for those who are not aware, psyche ni sebenarnya asal usul daripada perkataan psikologi. Okay, so from psychology, the key word here is psyche. Psyche actually means soul. So psychology is actually the study of the soul. When you talk about the soul, there are three main components. We're talking about affect, we're talking about behavior, we're talking about cognition. ABCs of the psyche. In other words, when we talk about someone's psyche, it has the internal component and the external component. It has nature and nurture. So if we are very serious about trying to reduce sex predators who are with us in our community, in our homes even, we have to understand that to address it holistically, we need to address both the internal factors, which is the nature, and we need to also address the external factors, which is nurture. Within the internal factors, okay, there are other factors, sub-factors or subdomains, if you want to call it. We're looking into, for example, the fact, going back to the understanding of what is psychology, we're looking into the belief system. Okay, sometimes the belief system of an individual will guide what he or she does, will guide his or her perception of the world. Other aspect of internal is the behavior, something that is seen, something that is visible, something that people can take notice of. The other aspect is cognition, okay, in internal factors of the psyche here. Cognition may or may not be very clear. It involves your thinking, your memory, the way that you perceive things and make sense of the world around you. Another aspect regarding the internal psyche of a sex predator is fantasies. Fantasies play a big role in the life of a predator in many ways. Victim selection, for example, okay? The modus operandi that he or she is going to get involved in. So when you talk about psyche, involves internal aspect, which has a lot of factors, and then we come to the external aspect. This is regarding, for example, relationships. How is the predator's relationship with other people, with his own family members, with his siblings, maybe with his school teachers, the wider society, his peers, for example. What is about, next is what is about his or her environment. Is it pro-sexualization or is it anti-sexualization? How about his learning? If we take into behaviorism, it looks into how people learn behaviors. So from that perspective, if sexual behavior can be learned, sexual behaviors can also be unlearned. People don't suddenly become deviant perverts. They must learn it from somewhere. Maybe it is from the pornography that they have. Maybe it's because they saw their parents perform sexual intimate acts. Maybe they were a victim of sexual intimacy from someone else. They were sodomized or they were molested. Okay, They have seen it somewhere. They have observed it somewhere. So that's the external part that contributes to understanding a sex predator's psyche. The fourth element in external is the support and maintenance systems in place. Does this person have a group of other like-minded individuals who support the predatory behavior that he or she has? I use both genders here because it's not always men. It's not only men. Okay, sometimes it's women. Sometimes it can be girls. Because they develop sexually fast and they're curious about sex at a younger age. And sometimes they can be the ones who actually try to influence other people, same gender maybe the opposite gender, to get involved in sexual activities. So it's both genders, although mostly it is men. The factors that I show you here is just some. It's basically the tip of the iceberg. There are a lot of other factors. For example, some people would say that sex predators are all crazy. They're insane. Even animals don't do this. Well, actually, many people who are later caught and put into prison and claim that they were not of sound mind at that time, many of those people who actually asked the judge to send them for psychiatric evaluation, less than 1% actually have been proven to be of unsound mind. Okay? Because it's the very nature of the sexual predatory act itself. So it's complex. And looking into the psyche, just based on this slide, where is victim blaming? Okay? It's so complex and has multifacets that to say that the victim is to be blamed for his or her own victimization, no, it's wrong. It is also just as wrong for responsible adults, so-called responsible adults, who claim if their child is a victim of sexual assault, we will solve this the family way. What is the family way? I mean, if the family way is to ask the child, forget about it. Lupakan je lah, dia dah jadi mangsa. Jangan ingat-ingat. No. It's not as easy as that. There's going to be flashback, there's going to be recall, there may be triggers, smell, sight, sound, that the child will be taken back, even maybe female victims, adult female victims. It can be male victims who are also adults. So these triggers will take them back to the traumatic experience, okay? Unless the family member is an actual psychologist or counselor, medical practitioner, a psychiatrist for that matter, saying that they will solve the trauma that the victim has experienced the family way, I don't agree with that, okay? Because that's not the way. It can be lifelong trauma. The person who was a victim may develop psychosis, may develop post-traumatic stress disorder, may be very depressed to the state of attempted suicide or even successful suicide. Okay, so when we want to try to tackle the social ill of the sexual violence that occurs in Malaysia, in our neighborhood, okay, in our community, the onus is actually on the sex predators themselves. Everyone has the right to actually make a police report. No one can stop you, okay? No one can even pressure you, force you, coerce you, threat you to take back the record. Especially if the case involves children, the investigation will go on. Unfortunately, there are a few individuals who think that jangan malukan keluarga, concept of I think this concept which should be eradicated. We should get rid of that. So in the interest of saving the face of the family, are you actually saying that we should allow this person to be traumatized for life? So it is as if this person's life has less value than the reputation of the family. Is that true? So please, if you do make a report or you know someone make a report, follow through. It's going to be lengthy. It's going to be time consuming. But if you do not follow through, you take back your report, what you're actually saying is that you acknowledge the crime is happened, you're acknowledging the crime has happened, and you will allow the criminal, this person who had violated your child, to go free and commit other crimes against other people. It is not enough for you to say, as long as my child is safe from this person, it's okay. No, you have a wider, a bigger, more responsibility. Okay, say for example, that person who had molested or even raped your child goes on to rape another person. You will be an accessory, or you can say accomplice to that crime. Okay, you are beating that criminal, that law violator, to commit another crime. And if someone makes a report against you and you are found guilty because of your lack of attention, your unwillingness to get justice for your child, for the victim, you're found guilty for not sharing that information, you can actually be tried. Either because you lack you're not actually going forward with the report because you took it back. You don't make a report at all, number two. Or number three, you just ignore the situation altogether and said, it's enough for me just to make a police report, and my cover letter is just to safeguard myself, and that's it. You're not saying that you want investigation. So you're actually enabling the criminal, this sexual predator, to continue. So if you're actually found guilty, well then, the penal code says you're going to get the same punishment, same penalty as the person who actually did it. Okay, so the penal code addresses this. Sexual Offences Against Children Act also addresses this. It's a duty to report. It's not about the victim's fault. It's not about who actually provides the opportunity, because sexual predators actually find their own opportunity. So, okay, moving on. Now, this is a study that my team and I did for a number of years, in the past 6 or 7 years, if I'm not mistaken. We actually compiled information and compared them using aggression questionnaire to see among the groups of those in prison in Malaysia, okay, the inmates in prison, who is more aggressive? Who is the most aggressive? Looking into the level of harm suffered, meaning death, okay, one would expect murderers would be the most violent, okay? But when you talk about murderers, you either have it as expressive murder, expressive meaning because of passion, anger, it can be because jealousy, emotional attachment there, or it can be instrumentive, whereby it's planned. Okay, there's an instrument plan, there's stages, there's a pre-planning stage and all the other stages. So if that happens, the amount of violence actually used is to ensure that the person dies. Okay, but when we compare to other groups of criminals in Malaysian prisons, it's not enough to only do it with them. We got to compare it with the public. We want to see whether the public in Malaysia are actually violent to begin with. It's no point just doing a study in prison if we don't know the meaning of what scores that we get. Okay, the meaning of the mean, the average that we get. So in the public group in Malaysia, these are all men. So public men of 392 individuals, the mean is 22.88 on average. That's the aggression level. Okay. The entire criminal population that involves sex offenders, robbers, motor vehicle thieves, and burglars in Malaysia of 325 is 30.03. So there is some evidence indicating that criminals are more aggressive than non-criminals. We break it up, compare sex offenders to robbers, to motor vehicle thieves, that's MVT, and burglars. Now, as you can see here, Okay, just on this one table, sex offenders are highly aggressive. They're more aggressive than burglars, motor vehicle thieves, and burglars. So, when it comes to sexual assault, the victim is most likely to be harmed. It can be a threat of harm or even actual harm of, being beaten up, that a weapon is being used during the commission. After all, penetration, vaginal penetration is already a form of physical harm anyways to begin with, okay? Because it's a violation of your rights. The next most aggressive in the list that we compared would be the motor vehicle thieves. Because either the vehicles are stolen for the vehicles themselves or their parts. And normally when they do the crimes, the motor vehicle thieves do bring with them some form of instrument. It can be even just a screwdriver, but that is already a potential weapon that they bring with them. Okay, sex offenders different. Normally it is their own body that is the weapon. They weaponize it to cause people to become fearful. So do remember that while we're talking here, some people are now living in dread, in apprehension and fear, because they know that tonight sex offenders are going to be targeting them. And unfortunately for many, they have nowhere to go. They have no one to turn to. They have informed their parent, their mother, their sister, their brother, or someone. But what they say, they have been ignored. Other family members deny or blame them for creating stories. So bear that in mind, yeah? So it's a very serious thing that we're looking into. So Atika, have you finished with the poll? Atika?
Yes, I have finished creating the poll. Okay.
Do you have the results?
All right. Okay. Now, let's see. Everybody, let's do the poll again. Number 1, apakah kumpulan umur anda? Alright. So, whoever has not answered this, please answer it. Prof, can you see the
No, I can't.
answer? You can't see the
No, I
poll?
can see. No, I can't.
Oh, you can't see the poll. Okay. Wait, hold on. Alright. So, we have at the moment, we have 13 people who answered this poll and
30
okay,
orang.
dah bertambah lagi. Okay,
Okay.
umur 18 ke 30 ada 5 orang.
Okay.
Termasuk saya 6 lah. Okay. 31 ke 45 ada 6 orang.
So 12 orang.
Dan 46 ke 65 usia ada 5 orang.
Oh, tak ramai.
Sekarang ni tengah active viewers 27 orang. So yang baru answer ni belum, maksudnya yang 27 orang ni bukannya semua yang answer lah ni. Ada yang nak merahsiakan dia punya age. Okay. Alright, so the first question, incidents of sexual crimes are due to economic problems. Kalau everybody is watching this live right now, they can see the poll. Okay.
Berapa ramai saya sebenarnya I would like to have an idea of out of 10
true and false.
jumlah dia berapa ramai.
Alright. For true, 1 orang. For false, 8 orang. Sekarang dah 9 orang.
Okay.
Okay. So, 18.
Okay. Berapa ramai yang jawab true? Berapa ramai jawab true for soalan 1?
Alright. 2 orang. 18% of the viewer. Now jadi 14%. Oh, jadi 14%. 2 orang jawab true.
Okay.
And
soalan
12 orang jawab false.
False. Okay. Soalan nombor 2, berapa ramai jawab ya? How many people say yes?
Alright. I open back the poll for soalan nombor 2 sebab mungkin ada yang tertinggal soalan ni. Victim of sexual crimes will recover as before the incident. Okay. Mangsa jenayah seksual akan pulih seperti sebelum insiden. Yang jawab yes 1 orang sahaja.
Okay, ya. Soalan ketiga?
Okay, soalan ketiga. Lack of job triggers incident of sexual violence. Saya open balik poll ni, jadi siapa yang nak jawab. Okay, kekurangan pekerjaan mencetuskan kelakuan keganasan seksual. Oh, dia 50-50. 50% cakap yes, 50% cakap no.
Okay.
Alright. Sekarang dia dah jadi
Take note of that.
45-55, so 50 false.
Okay, alright. I take note of that. Okay.
Okay. Alright, so the next questions. Sexual violence occurs due to poor religious education. Keganasan seksual berlaku kerana pendidikan agama yang lemah. Di sini 23% audience kita kata ya.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Berapa
Alright.
ramai?
3 orang.
3 orang. Okay.
3 orang tu dia merangkumi 20 3.
23.
Okay, jap. Sekarang ni dah dia dah makin banyak. 6 orang, 7. Oh, okay. Okay, maksudnya
looks like
viewer
macam
kita
kita start balik je ni.
okay. Tadi baru 2, 3. Sekarang dah jadi 3, 4, 5. Oh, dah jadi 7. Okay, dah 7. Alright. Okay.
So 7 people setuju di mana lack of religious education. Is it?
Yes, religious education. Betul.
Okay. Next question.
Alright. Okay, the next questions. I will reopen the poll untuk siapa yang masih belum jawab, viewers kita yang baru masuk. Okay, difference in status leads to sexual crime. Perbezaan status membawa kepada jenayah seksual.
Berapa ramai setuju?
2 orang setuju.
Tak ada penambahan?
Saya tengah tunggu ni. Nampak gayanya macam tiada penambahan di situ sebab penambahannya bertambah dekat tidak.
Okay. Alright.
Oh, ada penambahan. 3 orang setuju. Okay.
Okay, 3 orang setuju. Okay,
Oh, 4
noted.
orang lah. Okay. Okay, ada 4 orang setuju.
Okay.
Status tu ni membawa kepada jenayah seksual. Alright. Soalan seterusnya. Ting. Sekejap saya buka balik poll untuk siapa yang terlepas tadi. Sexual violence occurs due to life problems. Keganasan seksual berlaku disebab kerana masalah hidup. Keganasan seksual berlaku kerana masalah hidup. Dekat sini okay, kejap macam nak jadi 50-50 sebab dia bergerak-bergerak kan? Okay. 40-60, 40. Okay, jap. Itulah saya nak cakap 40-60 kan. Dia naik macam 50-50. Macam 50-50 balik kan. Like, okay. 7 orang cakap ya. Keganasan seksual berlaku disebabkan masalah. Oh, dah jadi 8. Dia bertambah. Dah jadi 9. Kan tadi saya cakap dia dah jadi 50-50 balik. Daripada 40-60.
9.
Okay. Ya, 9. Dan ya, tiada penambahan di situ. 9 orang mengatakan keganasan seksual berlaku disebabkan masalah kehidupan.
Okay.
Okay. Soalan seterusnya. Alright. Saya buka balik sekali lagi soalan nombor 6. Soalan nombor 7. Ya, soalan nombor 7. All sexual predators are sex addicts. Semua pemangsa seksual adalah penagih dadah.
Drug addicts. Not sex addicts.
Oh, sorry. Ya, drug addicts. Okay. Itulah typo di situ. Dia punya bahasa Melayu tu betul. Dia punya bahasa Inggeris tu. Okay. Tak ada siapa yang jawab true.
Okay. Alright, noted.
Okay. Tak ada siapa jawab true. Saya tunggu. Okay, tak ada. Memang tak ada orang jawab true. Semua 100% jawab salah.
Okay,
alright. Kita open balik poll ni. Okay, sexual predators are brought up in problematic families. Pemangsa seksual dibesarkan dalam keluarga bermasalah. 2 orang cakap ya. True.
Yang lain tak setuju.
Lain tidak setuju. 2 orang kata ya.
Alright.
Okay.
The last one.
Dan okay, sekejap ya. Okay. Ada lagi second last.
Oh. This is number 9
All sexual offenders use violence. Semua penjenayah seksual menggunakan kekerasan. Dekat sini 3 orang jawab ya.
Okay, yang lain jawab tak.
Yang lain jawab tidak dan buat masa ni tak ada penambahan di ya ataupun tidak.
Okay, alright. So the last one.
Oh, alright, the last one. Okay, untuk yang terakhir. Sexual crimes occur due to victim provocation. Jenayah seksual berlaku kerana provokasi mangsa dan tiada sesiapa pun yang menjawab ya.
Oh, really?
Kan? Tahu pula kan? Victim blaming. Okay.
That's good. No, that's good. Okay,
Alright.
so macam mana kita nak bagi interpretasi? It's very interesting. So saya harap para pendengar, audience dengar. Jawapan bagi ke 10 item adalah tidak benar. None of the answers are correct. Okay? From question number 1 itself, it should be no. It should be tak bersetuju. So anyone who actually answers bersetuju, then they don't actually understand what is meant by sex predators. Because you have sex predators, okay, who come from good families, who are religious, they have no problems in the family. Definitely they're not drug addicts, and I saw that all of you had agreed they're not drug addicts, okay? They do not all of them use violence because coercion is there. That's why we have sex grooming sebagai contoh. So all the responses are actually tidak benar. Okay, it should be disagree. So for those of you who had answered yes in 1 or 2 places, welcome. That's why this session is very important. I'm a bit disappointed that we don't have that many people seeing. Probably it's the time. But never mind. I do thank you for your time, for spending time and actually listening to know more about the situation and to help educate people out there. So, Atika, can we go to the next slide, please? Yeah, after this one. So, important consideration when we think about the psyche of predators is how they actually target selection. Diorang ni macam mana? So when they want to select a specific target, what is going on in the brain? Okay, what is it about a person that makes them so attractive to the predator? So actually, there's 3 big issues. First is the reference population, second is a checklist, and the third is opportunity. I'm not saying that sex predators actually ada satu list dalam otak mereka, tak. Tapi bagi setiap pemangsa seksual, mereka ada kriteria sendiri. Dan ini menyukarkan apabila kita nak buat profile. There is no one single profile that explains the entirety of pemangsa seksual ni siapa. It's not as easy as that. Okay? So I've been doing research on sex offenders since 2006. Okay? Memang ada pelbagai ragam. The information that I'm sharing comes from years of research, interviewing sexual offenders who are in Malaysian prisons. So it's not only doing reading, okay? It's actually asking them questions about why, how, and when do they do these criminal activities. So when we talk about reference population, we're looking into the exposure, the readiness of the victim to accept tingkah laku yang berbau sexual oleh pemangsa. So if the child, in this case, it can be also a young female, can just put a random person, okay, a random person has already had prior exposure to sexual activities, sexual acts, okay? This improves the chance of the pemangsa sexual ni, of the predator, to actually approach and be successful in his sexual activity with this person. Another important consideration when you look into reference population is the socio-economic conditions. A lot of predators will select victims whom they see as being disadvantaged. It can be in terms of monetary, it can be seen as status, individu yang dipulaukan, diasingkan oleh orang lain, sebagai contoh anak-anak yang anak-anak gelandangan, for example, who people don't really appear to care much about. And the third is, of course, availability. Exposure includes photographic material, whether brought, shown, shared by the sexual offender or the victim himself or herself. Social economic conditions are tied in that. So you have more money. Sometimes you don't even need money, so the exposure is higher, as well as availability. But in reference population, the most important element here is availability. So if the potential victim is not around, it's not going to happen. Many instances of sumamara, okay, incest, crimes against children in homes, is because that child is available. Sometimes the mother knows, but just ignores, deny that the husband is actually sodomizing or molesting the child. Sometimes the mother is also party to it. The mother will say, better I know who my husband is sleeping around with, then he goes and sleep around with prostitutes and get STDs, for example. Okay, that's the reality that we face now. Second group of factors we're looking into is checklist. It's not a physical checklist, although for some they do have it. Okay, it's a mental checklist. What are the preparations needed in place? We're looking into how do I communicate? What are the words I should use? What if scenarios? So that's preparations, okay? I disagree with what the Sexual Offences Against Children Act state, which it actually emphasizes on the presence of communication, that is under Section 11 of the Sexual Offences Against Children Act, whereby it's about sexually communicating with a child or encourages a child to sexually communicate. Because when we talk about exposure, when we talk about sexual grooming, communication is just a small part. When sexual offenders groom a child, it's actually developing a psyche. Remember the earlier slide? The internal and external part of a psyche. So actually developing a person's psyche, which actually sustains and supports the sex deviancy of the groomer. So it goes beyond communication. We're looking into changing the person's perception. What is appropriate sex behavior? Where the sexual offender actually change to develop what is good or not good sexual relationships. So it goes beyond communication. So Section 11 of the Sexual Offense Against Children and Section 12 actually, it only talks about communication. So we need changes there. Another mental checklist is obsessions. A lot, and I would say about 80% of those that I've actually met in prison, they do have obsessions, specific obsessions. It can be fetish, it can be paraphilia. So overseas studies, not in Malaysia, we don't have this. Okay, overseas studies indicate more than 300 type of fetish. Fetish here, which is also a part of the paraphilia, is objek yang menaikkan nafsu ataupun syahwat seseorang itu. It can be harmless, it can be beneficial, but for instance, in this situation of sexual predator, it's not. So for example, one of the fetish would be shopping. Okay, love to buy shoes, for example. Kalau dia membina bawa kepada kebaikan, it's fine. But it is not fine when it actually hurts, causes harm to someone else or even the individual themselves. So you have sex predators with weird fetish. One of them is suka bawa ketiak orang. Okay, dia punya kekasih dia lah. Okay, that is what dia menaikkan syahwat dia, menaikkan nafsu dia. Ada yang jenis suka bau stokin. Some men do this. Okay, satu hari pakai stokin, sampai rumah buka stokin, crumple the sock, put in the shoe. Esok pagi, okay, that's a fetish. Okay, kalau terkahwin lelaki macam tu, I cannot do anything. Okay, you have to live with it. Or you have to train that person to not do such behavior. So you have all sorts of fetish. Some can be harmful. Some is just weird. There are some fetish that, for example, have specific erogenous zones in the body that they prefer. They prefer, for example, just the lips, for example. They like the victim or the sexual partner to have long hair, for example. Macam-macam. Okay? Ada yang sengaja mencari mangsa yang gemuk-gemuk. Ada yang sengaja mencari mangsa bawah umur. Macam-macam. So that's the part of the obsession. Okay? So when they walk around and seek for the potential sexual partner, they don't look at everyone. They will try to find as close as possible that actually fits the obsession. Okay? Because they want pleasure, satisfaction for themselves, not for the sexual partner. The third aspect in target selection will be opportunity. What are the logistics involved? How much time is needed? And getting away with the crime. Simple case to see is Kenny Ong. Okay? So the sex offender went around the shopping complex 3 or 4 days. Went to other shopping complexes as well. Thinking about looking at the obsessions that are present in the potential women that he went around looking from the back, from all angles. In his bag, he had the condom, he had talcum powder, he had even a knife. That's preparation already. So all these happen in the internal psyche of the sex offender. Where does victim blaming come in? Okay, this is all preparation by the sex predator. It's not the victim. How much time is needed to do the crime? Okay, portrayal in media, portrayal in photography appears that the sexual intimacy, the sexual assault happens a long time. Actually, it's not. It doesn't happen for 7 hours or 8 hours. No, it can be very short. That's why you have to be aware that sometimes husbands, men in the family, cousin, grandfather, the person who can actually stop the crime from happening at home goes out just to the shop next door. It's probably 100 meters away. So while the responsible adult in the family walks or goes to the shop, by the time this person comes back, it's a done deal. Okay? The crime has already occurred in the home. And it's too late for the responsible member that can actually stop the crime and say, I went just for a short time. Yeah, that's how it can happen. Because sex offenders, if there is no opportunity, they will create opportunity. Okay? And then getting away with it. So there's threat, there's coercion, there's reward. And sex grooming plays a big role in this. Because, take it this way, if the sexual relations were halal, were permissive, why do they have to threat the sexual partner? Why must it become such a secret? You see, so sexual behavior of these sex predators, you cannot blame the victim. Okay? Target selection is pervasive nature. So next slide, please. Right. So you just select. What happens next? I hope non-potential sex offenders are listening in. Okay, I hope not. Okay. This tells you actually to educate you to provide a protective environment for your home. So when we look into factors in target determination, there are 3 big areas. First is the prerequisites before it moves on to considering. It's a decision-making matrix there. It is the thought processes, the cognitive aspect of the psyche to see, moving on, possible or not, to determination. This is who I will select as my sexual partner. Okay, it's never about the victim's gain. It's all about what the sexual offender gains. So when we talk about prerequisites, there's a lot of things. I've only highlighted 3 here in the interest of time. First is the physical characteristics. Not all sex offenders have the same physical characteristics that they look out for. As I mentioned just now, long hair, short hair, fat, thin, fair skin, dark skin, like Richard Huckle. So I was involved in profiling him and his victims. All Richard Huckle's victims are dark skinned. If the child is fair, dia tak nak. So that's why one of the things when he put in the dark web and shared his so-called manifesto, he didn't get a lot of response from like-minded sex predators because they were not interested in dark-skinned children. Okay, that's the physical characteristics we're talking about. Next is traits. a lot of innocence, manja, tak manja, a lot of traits there, okay? Are they reckless? Are they trusting? Are they gullible? Those are the traits. And target suspectability. Mudah terima umpan, mudah terima someone just, compliment them, dah okay. Bagi gula-gula, okay. So that's sort of stuff when we talk about target suspectability. If those are in place, okay? This is done very easy through conversation. It can be online, it can be face-to-face. Internet actually facilitates these prerequisites. So you got to be careful, you got to be aware of this. So when that is all in place, the next step moves on to, adakah situasi sekarang ni sesuai dan memudahkan saya untuk melakukan jenayah tersebut. They deny it's a jenayah. They say it's to educate the child, it's consensual, macam-macam reasons. So look at target vulnerability, broken home, tak ada kasih sayang, never mind, I'll be there to get the kasih sayang. Target cooperation, okay, mungkin memberontak, mungkin dia memang nakkan kasih sayang, so there's cooperation. In the case of Richard Huckle, he got not only target cooperation, but his victim's family's cooperation because of false promises. He had, at that time, a fiancée, a very young girl. Her family knew. He excused his behavior by saying, I'll wait for her to turn 17 and then we get married. So the Indian parents were very happy. Wah, dapat Mak Saleh as son-in-law. Okay? So he used reverse psychology, kata-kata manis, influencing them because of white skin. Okay, and we have got to change that. Okay? White skin does not necessarily mean that you are the epitome of beauty. No. He got the cooperation from the parents of that victim. She allowed herself to be objectified as a sexual object. But she at one time tried to stop him because he was actually sodomizing the younger children. So dia punya siblings yang bawah daripada dia. Dia kata, she tried to stop me by not allowing me to have sexual intimacy with adik-beradik dia. Okay? But he still proceeded. So we have target cooperation there. You have target lifestyles. So the fake promises of actually enabling this poor family to get away from poverty because he has money, because he has status sometimes, CEO of a company. It can be because of, having certain pangkat, Datuk ke, Tan Sri ke, whoever lah, whatever it is in front of the name. Sometimes it can even be doctors. Okay? So they are supposed to be pillars of society, but actually not. They actually shatter the lives of the victims. And it can be socioeconomic status issues. So they want to get away from that. Those are the favorable conditions. And many of these aspects here, in fact, all of these aspects here, Richard Huckle admitted to. Okay, why he targeted the children who he targeted. In some cases also, in Malaysia, we have them, all four, but it differs from person to person. After all that, baru move to determination, yeah? So it's method of approach. Macam mana nak pancing this person? What should I use to bait this person to become my sexual partner? Method of maintenance. So again, it goes back to matter of coercion, lies, giving reward, giving gifts, giving money, and culpability. So sometimes, unfortunately, victims have been groomed and they see nothing wrong with the perversions, with the predatory sexual behaviors that may include bondage, that include maybe violence, pukul sini, pukul sana. Macam Kenny Ong punya case, the first time he raped her, he had the knife at her throat, okay, in his confession. The second time, he took the knife and actually stabbed her from under the sternum. And while the knife was inside her body, he was actually having sex with her. Okay? So that was one of his deviant fantasies. Moving on, please. Atika. Next slide. Okay, we're almost to the end. So, in other words, when we talk about sexual jenayah seks ni, sexual crime, it is on the victim. Because blaming a rape victim for not wearing modest clothes is like blaming victims of terror for not wearing bulletproof armor. Okay? Sexual crimes are purposive in nature. You do not blame the victim because victims' preferences are not taken into consideration, but they are blamed for it. Okay? Ikut lelaki macam tu. Ikutlah pakai baju macam tu pada muka. For example. Okay, that's wrong. That is not acceptable. The decision was in the hand of the sex predator. Okay. Next slide, please. So in summary, in this 50 plus minutes, first is the action of sex predators are actually intentional. They are purposive in nature and deliberate. Okay. Sex crimes do not occur tanpa sengaja, tanpa niat. No. Semua berniat. Dia hanya menunggu peluang saja. Dan dia adalah tingkah laku yang sangat disengajakan. They plan for it. Okay? Tak ada seorang yang tak plan for it. Saya tak sengaja menjadi pemangsa seksual. No. Paling tidak, they will have deviant sex fantasies. So all they need is actually an opportunity. So if the opportunity does not occur naturally, they will create opportunities. Okay? So we have to reduce the opportunity. It is not the action of an insane or crazy person. So the second slide we saw just now, looking at the psyche. What's the crazy? Tak ada pun. It's deliberate action, what? So they can't claim they were crazy. Doing the sex act, they were crazy, and then the other 23 odd hours, they were not. They can become imam masjid. They can be pillar of society. They can be someone looked up to. They're a good provider. They work a good job. They're a good friend. But when it comes to molesting someone, doing sexual violence, they're suddenly insane. No. Okay, that's not an excuse. It's a cognitive distortion to reduce their responsibility. Because you see, the amount of violence and victim suffering can actually be linked to their deviant and obsessive fantasies. So we've done profiling, we've asked questions of those inmates, sex offenders in prison, and yes, through projective techniques, they do show deviant and obsessive fantasies. It is a deliberate cognitive distortion to minimize responsibility. For example, they will say, at least I do it to my own child. I'm not disturbing anyone else outside. I give my child food and drink and make sure she has education. So what's wrong? Why should I allow someone to benefit, to get the sexual pleasure from someone whom I had actually taken care for 20, 10, 15 years of her life? Might as well I get to experience it first. So it's a cognitive distortion. There is a link with pornographic materials. Okay, all those who have interviewed, my team members have interviewed and asked questions in prison, there's always an element of pornographic material. Many of them cannot distinguish between acting and real life. So it's very dangerous if people get access to and enjoy violent pornographic materials because they tend to express that in real life. They think that is how sexual intimacy should be. And the problem with violent sexual intimacies is that they keep on getting more and more violent. It does not digress. It does not go back. It will become more and more violent. So the actions of pedophiles or sexual predators are learned behaviors. Normally because of the sexual pornographic materials they get from their own experience, from the accepting or lack of acceptance from the sexual partner. Some of them like it when the unfortunate victims fight back. Okay, so they get more thrill. So it can be many reasons. Again, there's no one specific profile. Okay, sexual predators perceive their victims as sexual objects, not as a person. So in intimacy, it is only the satisfaction of the sexual predators. It depends on what type. Some of them will say that my partner definitely gets some satisfaction, although there is a high possibility that they don't. They probably get pain. But pain for some sexual predators is something which they want. So they will definitely use weapons. Sometimes they will, tumbuk ke macam-macam tingkah laku, ya. Next, as a summary, sexual predators must be held accountable for their actions and not be borne by victims whose lives are continuously shattered, not only during the episode, but henceforth. Recall, triggered, they remember it back, so the entire life is shattered. They won't have good relationship with people, although some sexual offenders reason that they will be okay. It's not true. Without proper intervention, without counseling, without help, they will never go back to a life of innocence as before they were victimized. And then we look into the final line there, which states not making reports, retracting reports, silencing victims' voices are actually supporting the sex predators' behaviors. And that is what we can actually do to stop sex predators in our midst. It's our responsibility. So you can see from the explanation that I provided here that when we talk about the psyche of sex predators, it's not straightforward. Okay, a victim should not be held responsible, should not be held accountable for the violence perpetrated by the predators. Okay, you can't control that, not the victim. It is the fault, clear cut, of the sex offender. He or she can't say because the child was wearing sexy clothes. A 4-year-old enticing a 50-year-old man? No. Okay? You can't make the child, a 4-year-old, jaga aurat. They don't even understand the concept of aurat. They don't even understand the concept of modesty. You get children, for example, in the villages, running around with their friends, not wearing anything. Because it's not aurat. Okay, that's one thing, okay? It's not something that people sexualize the child at such a young tender age. Okay, but this is all the justifications that sex predators have. So the job is on you as responsible adults to make the reports. If you make a report, don't take it back. Follow through. Enable the victims to have a voice to come forward. Okay, it takes a lot of bravery to come forward and admit to a so-called responsible adult that he or she has been molested, has been a victim of rape. It takes a lot of bravery. So that bravery, you have to accept and see that this is something serious. Jangan perkecilkan, perlekehkan, because it takes a lot of courage for them to come forward. Okay, next slide, please. Atika, next slide, please. So, how in the world are we going to reduce vulnerability? These are some guidelines that you can take. First is stop victim blaming. It stops there. If you can stop victim blaming, everything else is okay. Okay? Age-appropriate sex education. Don't see teaching children about sex as a taboo. That's wrong. When you say something is taboo, there'll be conditions in which it is not taboo. Okay? So it's age-appropriate sex education. There's a lot of information available on that. Reduce neglect of children. Okay? Children are gifts from God. You shape the gift that is God given. So if you neglect children, if anything happens, the responsibility is on you. Reduce handing over the care of children to other people. Every single year, I will get at least one case. Kindergarten, rumah asuhan, the children are seen as personal harem to the spouse, to the children of the person in charge. So say, for example, you send your children to one makcik, it'll be her husband ke, her son ke, neighbor ke, that takes the opportunities, but ramai budak-budak di situ kan, as personal harem. So a ready pool of suspects there. Every year we get at least one case. I'm not saying don't send, no. Find out properly, be cautious, look at the relationship of your child with that person and the other people in the environment. Always check to make sure that your child's not abused. Following from that, reduce retraction of police reports, that's standard. reduce tolerance levels of violence and abuse. If you say no once, the next time the violence is going to increase. So put a stop on. First dapat je ada tanda keganasan, put a stop to it straight away. Okay. Increase social support network for vulnerable and at-risk people. Sometimes they need courage from others to come forward. They don't immediately trust the mother or immediately trust the father. If the father is the abuser, is the predator, they might fear that the family will be broken, so they won't tell the mother. Maybe they tell the best friend. So you need a good social support network to actually help the child. Some children don't even know who to turn to, who to talk to, because their home environment is toxic. Other than that, we have to empower children and teach them to stand for their rights against violence and abuse. So again, there's sex education there. It's tell them what to do in case violence occurs, who can they find help from, who they think are responsible adults to help them. And finally, if a child says to a parent or guardian or adult that someone had behaved or touched him or her in a manner which is unacceptable, please listen to that child with respect, dignity, and the seriousness it deserves. Don't just punish the child, don't deny the child, or blame the child for making up stories. It's serious business. If you break that and you think that the child is lying, and you tell other members of your family, no lah, dia main-main saja, tengoklah dia tipu-tipu, auntie, uncle semua tahu. You yourself are actually breaking down your family. Okay? So, no victim blaming, please. Next slide, please. That should be the end. Yep. So, thank you for listening and participating. I give it back to Atika in case there's anyone in the audience who would like to ask questions.
Okay. Thank you, Doktor, for your
Soalan?
sharing. So far saya tak nampak lagi soalan tetapi ada banyak statement lah. Right. Hold on. Kita tengok yang ini.
Okay. Apa Maria? Dia kata parents must be aware of existence of these sickos and ensure, yang bawah tu tak dapat baca, the safety of their children.
Of their children when in the care of others.
Oh yeah, totally. Yes. Jangan lepas tangan You must really know yang you bagi ni, siapa sebenarnya orang yang bagi ni. You kena kenal. Is it just word of mouth? Oh, pakcik tu dia baik, pandai jaga anak-anak kita. Is it? Okay, ask. Saat ask me, can I share your slides? Yeah, sure. Except for the first one, yang the poll. Yang poll tu saya memang guna in my community engagement tu tak boleh lah. And of course, site lah from siapa. So if you put from me, then I'm fine with it lah. So site properly, I'm okay.
Alright. Okay. So I had a question while we wait for our viewers to ask questions. Alright. So from our sharing tonight, I noticed Professor memang banyak tekankan, that you should put the blame on the sexual offenders. And report, and do not retract you punya report. But what about cases whereby that sexual offenders is within the family? That usually makes it very hard for the victim to come out.
There are actually various ways. First is to ensure the safety of the child. So there is interim protection order. Sometimes the children begitu tak tahan, mereka akan lari dari rumah. They'll find a safe place. Okay? So this is where social workers come into play. Okay? If the child is taken to Balai Police, they might be there for some time, but the Balai Police will actually ask for social workers, Jabatan Kebajikan people to come in and place them in a safe situation. Unfortunately, sometimes this cannot be done. Okay, so the child has no choice but to go back to the family. So this is why it's so important to also educate lawmakers. So important to make sure that judges and lawyers are aware of the situation. So given that they don't have that chance of physically being separated from the abuser in case of the family, it is important to identify who in the family who can actually protect and become a barrier that does not enable the abuser to get into contact with the child. Can be an uncle, because rata-rata sex predators are cowards. They are not going to target people who they perceive to be stronger than they are. If you have another individual in the home environment who can stop this person from committing the offense, that will help. That will help a lot. Otherwise, the child will run away from home, get the social workers in to masuk under Jabatan Kebajikan. The third alternative is to find a more secure temporary lodging with other family members, if that is possible. So there are actually three of those ways to provide a more protective environment before they move on. Because it will be a possibility, if they're still within the home environment, there will be undue pressure for the child and the person making the report to retract the report. They will blame the child, definitely. You're breaking up the family, you're bringing shame to the family and all that. So again, sex education is important here, as well as informing that it's not the victim's fault. It is the perpetrator, the predator who has actually broken up the family. Again, it's the predator, yeah? He's seeking excuses. Okay, he knows it's wrong. It's not the child. So I see an answer from, I hope that answers your question, Atika. So Chong says, can you share some rehabilitation strategies that you use with sexual offenders? In 2006, I created a module for sexual offenders in prison with my father. I have given the copyright to prison. There are a lot of strategies. First is that we profile them. So all sexual offenders have to go through at least 14 assessments in prison. Because as I saw just now in the first few slides about the psyche, you have the internal and external factors. We have to identify first which are the sub-factors that actually shape the psyche of the sexual predator in prison. Yeah, only then we can address. For example, if it's aggression, so aggression, you have 4 subdomains: verbal aggression, physical aggression, anger, and hostility. So among these 4, for that particular person, which is highest, and when we address the rehabilitation, is about that specific first. Some of the strategies can run continuously, some must run one after the other. Another issue that we look into is whether or not this person has some form of psychosis. Is he having psychopathy? Is he, for example, bipolar? Is he schizophrenic, for example? So if that is so, then the treatment will be different. You have to address those forms of mental illnesses, mental disorders first. We also look into whether there's a history of taking drugs. Your mind, the brain, physically the brain is becomes rosak if you have drugs in your system. Okay, so we have to address that together with the rehabilitation. So in prison, what we actually do is customize according to the symptoms, according to the diagnosis shown in the 14 types of assessment that they have to take. It is not available outside the prison. Very simple reason why. They have not been identified as criminals. So you cannot force compliance. Okay? You cannot force compliance. They can come forward if they want, but you cannot force them to follow through the assessments. You cannot enforce them to follow through the various strategies in order to make them better individuals that are actually contributing to society. You can't say that sex predatory behavior is a disease. It's learned behavior and it can be unlearned. Why is it not every person is a sex predator? What is actually stopping all the millions of people out there from victimizing other people? Okay, you have to turn it around. Instead of looking at why are these sexual offenders offending, why are the non-sexual offenders not offending? So if they can learn not to offend, the same goes with offenders. There's a lot. Side as me factors in target selection is the Malaysian sexual predator trait, there's not one single. Okay, it goes back to the assessment in prison under 14. So you have various forms. You have, for example, pedophiles. Each one is unique. Some of them would select fair skin, dark skin. Some of them only prepubescent children. Some will only target children below 6 years old. Dia berbeza-beza. The thing is, because I haven't interviewed all sexual offenders in prison, so there's likely outliers, tingkah laku yang tidak dapat dikumpulkan under one cluster. Okay, sexual predators target definition for children and adult is the same? No, because they are sexually attracted to different features, different characteristics. A sexual predator may be sexually attracted to a child, yet they're in a marriage. The marriage is used to camouflage, menipu orang berkaitan dengan sexual tarikan dia. So the marriage punya sexual intimacy maybe possible. But anak-anak yang dia dapat tu, itulah dia sebenarnya yang dia nak. So you saw in the recent cases mana dia target memang anak-anak saja, dewasa dia tak. So the marriage is used as an excuse as to like a camouflage. That orang tak akan mensyaki dia. Ada juga keadaan di mana dia sexual predators adult saja. Kanak-kanak memang dia tak akan kecam. Ada. Okay. Are there sexual predators in children who don't groom the child? Yeah, memang ada. Okay. Because again, it's about opportunity. It's about thinking whether they can get away from the crime. So they will do this through sexting. They will do this through internet, social apps, social platforms. And they will try to dapat jumpa secara fizikal secepat yang mungkin. Grooming can occur within even one conversation. That's enough. Are you free to meet today? Dah start dah buka opportunity. Element of grooming is not readily available for all sexual offenders because kadang-kadang is opportunity. For example, yang you have yang approach the victim secara tiba-tiba. Serangan. Okay? Kalau ada serangan seksual, dia hanya memerlukan opportunity, ada elemen sexual grooming di situ. So a number of cases di mana yang wanita mula-mula dirogoh dan kemudian dibunuh. Okay, so itu serangan seksual. Dia tak ada grooming di situ. Okay, any other questions? Minta izin untuk share screenshot the last 2 slides. Yeah, okay, that's fine. But asalkan you have my name there, I'm okay with it. Who can identify sex predators? People don't go around with talk, I am a sex predator. Tak. Okay? So it is behavior. It is also children's, if you're talking about child sex predators, okay? It is children's reactions to a certain person. If they're afraid to be left alone with that certain person. Okay, they dislike that certain person. But they cannot talk, tak ngerti nak cakap why. That is a big sign for you to take aware of. There's something wrong with this person. Kenapa your child or a person does not want to be alone with that person. Okay. Other than that, you have to do assessments. So it will be those who are in this field of actually profiling. So you have criminologists, not all though, okay? Because criminology is also a wide field and not all of us are in this area. Some of us are into different forms of criminality. So it depends. You can ask, for example, physician, not all physicians again, specific physicians who are trained by government hospitals to conduct the rape kit. So they would know physical symptoms of a child or person who has become a victim of sexual assault. So you can ask them as well. But this is a specialized field. So it's not every psychologist you meet. It's not going to be every counselor, every teacher, no. Okay? Because they don't go around and advertising, I'm a sexual predator. No. They know who they are. They will try to act as normal as possible. So one of the best ways to look is how children, their potential victim pool, react towards them. What about if sexual offender is a woman? Do you have the same factor as target selection and target determination? Yes, they do. In their mind, there are deviant fantasies. Lelaki ke perempuan sama je. Deviant fantasies, sex obsessions, and they will select, determine their victims according to their own frame of mind. Siapa dia jadikan mangsa? It can be, for example, purposely selecting rich men. Okay, making sure that those men are enjoy sexual intimacy with them, so they get benefit from it. So dia macam prostitution. Certain aspects, not all. Ada yang sengaja pilih kanak-kanak lelaki bawah umur in order to educate these boys so they know what to do when they marry and have a woman of their own. Okay, pelbagai. I didn't get the last question, sorry. Atika tolong tunjukkan. Okay. Oh no, okay, this one I saw just now. Same factors but different features lah. How can a sexual predator hide their true colours in public? It's all an act to begin with. The whole life is a lie. So dah sebatik dengan diri mereka. Mereka akan bawa diri mereka macam orang biasa. I think it came up in FB. Okay, it was a Bangladeshi man at the hotel counter looking at child pornography video. A Chinese lady and the child came up to the counter nak check in. That Chinese woman nampak that child pornography. And he's there, fine, okay, you want to register in the hotel, what the name semua? And the man acting just as normal. So it's actually very simple to hide their true colours. You don't see them always pakai cap, bawa tengok orang. No. Okay, only newbies, and it's only shown in movies to differentiate between orang jahat dan orang yang baik. So it's actually very easy to hide the true colours. Okay, agree with Mr. Paul who commented earlier that authorities should not allow reports to be withdrawn. Yeah, it shouldn't. Sometimes, unfortunately, police officers themselves who don't have enough training, who are not aware, sometimes they coerce, they threat, or they make the situation seem so bad that the parents or the victim tarik balik report. But if I'm mistaken, Suicide SB, please correct me if I'm wrong. Even if you retract in case of statutory rape, the investigation will still go on. Okay? Jaji dah buat report. In the report, please state to open investigation in this case. Or something that way. Janji benda tu ada, we will go through. Especially for statutory rape. I'm not sure. Saismi, is that the way in Malaysia? Okay. Authorities should not allow reports to be dismissed or withdrawn. That's true. Sometimes it's also because of lack of education or awareness. There's pressure from the family, from people in the neighborhood, kurang peka, that they actually could continue them. Yeah. Can government tie issuance of license of childcare education centers or fees to detailed info of all teachers' careers? Actually, yes. Okay, because we have, for example, governing acts governing schools, universities, colleges, and there are prerequisites on who should be a teacher, job description, everything. What is lacking? What is extremely lacking in our country is database of their profile. Their traits, their criminogenic background tu tak ada. Okay. License is given to childcare centers if that childcare centers care for more than 5 children. If it's below 5 children, it is not satu kepastian, it's not the law for you to not register. Okay, in other words, kalau kurang daripada 5 kanak-kanak bawah jangan anda, tak perlu ambil lesen pun. So the situation arises bila kurang daripada 5 kanak-kanak, katakanlah 4 orang. Okay, you're not bound by law to tell that you need a license. You need detailed information. So Saat said yes, the case can proceed even though family members ke siapa tarik balik case tu, if there's enough evidence lah. So case tu akan dibawa ke muka pengadilan. So going back to the question just now, in making childcare and education centers, they have list of who is involved. Unfortunately, it is the HR, the recruitment part of the agency, who does not do a good background check, to see some other that individual who they hire has a history, their experiences in a previous organization. They don't check whether the claims are fake or genuine. So that was missing, the enforcement aspect, as well as making sure that the personality, the psyche of the individual is safe for children to be around them. Itu yang tak ada. And it's not going to be there. Selagi it's not made mandatory to have parts of profiling as part and parcel of being employed in the job. We have it in universities. We have it in certain government agencies. Okay, I know this because I with some other people actually developed this for our Ministry of Home Affairs. So anyone, for example, who wants to become a police officer, have to sit for this online test, which I bangunkan for KDN, and we look into certain traits, including aggression, suicide ideation, to see the predispositions of you to become violent or not while on the job. Okay, so on sexual preferences, that's not part of it. Until that's put into consideration in determining appropriate teachers or ustazah, situation whereby opportunities are taken by sex predators to view such schools as their own personal harem is going to be there. So we got to change that law. Insist on it as being part and parcel of legal employment. Okay lah. But ada juga, bear in mind ada juga institusi pendidikan yang illegal, yang langsung tak daftar pun ada. Salam, Afzan, there are victims of child sexual molestation who have kept these incidents a secret for all their lives. Yes, definitely. Memang ada. Sampai ketua, memang kadang-kadang they will be depressed and tak dapat nak mengutarakan why they're so depressed. That's how bad the experiences are. They hope and pray, there are dua, hope and pray that it doesn't happen again to themselves or their children. Atau kedua, when they grow up, they seek toxic marriages, toxic partners, and the vicious cycle of violence continues because mereka sudah biasa. They expect that type of violence to occur in their marriage. And when it happens to them in their marriage, they say, masa kecil saya pun jadi mangsa macam tu. Inilah kot maksudnya marriage. And then when it happens to their own children, terima je lah. Itulah maksudnya perkahwinan. So it's a vicious cycle of violence. Atika, can you go back to that question? Saya tak habis lagi jawapan tu. Okay, thank you, Atika. Mental health issues like PTSD, bipolar, manic disorder often manifest. Yes, it does. Because you bottle it up. There's no intervention. There's no care. The interest in Malaysia, especially Malaysian news, criminal. What is happening to the victim? Ramai pula yang kata, let us selesaikan masalah ini secara keluarga. Now, that is one of the worst ways to go, okay? Not secara keluarga. You need proper professional help. It's not too late. Even if you're 50s and 60s, because sudah menghantui your entire life. You deserve the help if you need it, okay? When they are diagnosed, family members and loved ones question why they suddenly develop mental health issues. It does not occur suddenly. It develops over time. Seeking help is when the person dah tak tahan dah. Okay? Do you advise coming forward about one's history as a victim long after the incident? The sooner you make the report, the better for you. The better for the mental health of the person. But if there are a lot of obstructions, there are a lot of problems in coming forward, better late than never. So even if you're 60s, maybe you think it's time, you dah tahan dah, and you want to seek relief, why not? You can still come forward. If you think you deserve the help, you want to get the help, you want to be at peace, yes. Okay, because being a victim of sexual violence, your life is shattered. Totally shattered. Bukan kejap-kejap. So after the incident, for you to pick up the pieces, sometimes you just can't manage. Okay, it depends on the person's personality. It does not mean that you're weak. Okay, you have suffered so long, and just you don't suffer alone anymore. By all means, seek the help. So any other questions? What is the main internal factor for sexual offender? There's no single one main factor. It is very much subjective to the offender. Among the most pertinent things that we can identify the internal factor is deviant sexual fantasies and obsessions. Okay, that's number one. So dia ada fantasy yang bermain dalam kepala dia mengenai harm to partner semasa seks ataupun individu yang dipilih untuk melakukan seks tersebut. So it may be something selecting, wishing for the sexual partner to be a child, to be for example in Malaysia is not allowed lah kan, to be the same gender for example. It is a desire to want to harm the person. If it is consensual, like in DSM, that's a different matter totally. But we look into the deviant and obsessive sexual fantasies that this person expresses. Okay, that is a big sign to look out for. Other than that is a belief system. Some predators strongly believe it's their right to be violent, to rape, molest their own children because it's their given right. They see themselves privileged to do so. Pun ada juga. So it's not one single factor. It very much depends on the type of a predator that is in front of you or within your environment. Okay. So any other questions?
So far, there are no other questions.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Prof, for sharing tonight. Okay, I learned
hope
a
the
lot.
audience also learns a lot. And as long as it helps to protect vulnerable children and make Malaysia safer, I'm all for it. So although not many people actually are attending to this live, the commitment given to the audience is very good. I really appreciate it because crime prevention, especially in the area of preventing sex predators, continuation of their behavior, is not a one person's job. I can't do it alone. So the presence of the audience and their participation in this sort of engagement to me is very valuable, and it motivates me to do even more work in continuation of my work. And it'd be very helpful when I went through the statements just now. So when I go next into prison and interview the criminals, I can add to the body of knowledge the angles of interest to make Malaysia more safer. So thank you very much for giving me this opportunity.
Yes. Thank you, Prof, for being here and sharing with us. And we have to take your time sampai pukul 10. I'm so very grateful to have you, and we are very honoured to have you tonight.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Okay. Alright. Jadi untuk semua viewers, pada hari ini kita dah belajar tentang episod The Psyche of Sexual Predators. Saya harap anda semua tahu, as the summary goes, sexual offenders, they are very bila dia nak buat sesuatu act of sex offence, memang dia dah plan about it, dia dah target, dia dah create the opportunity, and it is not something macam suka-suka nampak perempuan tu terus nak rape. No, they already target the victims and they already scout the area and they already try to think of all the kind of research, how can I get away with it. So with this sharing tonight, I really hope that all of you will stop victim blamings, because it is never the victim's fault. Okay? Alright. Okay, Prof. Terima kasih banyak-banyak. Jadi sebelum saya akhiri malam ini punya episod, seperti biasa, alright. So, Jewel adalah Pertubuhan Pergerakan Wanita Johor, dan ianya merupakan sebuah pertubuhan sukarelawan wanita berdedikasi untuk memajukan status wanita dan hak kanak-kanak. Jadi di sini kami menyeru anda semua, sekiranya anda suka dan ingin terus menyokong dengan Jewel punya work, please donate us, as our dana is going dry, So just for your information, apakah tugas-tugas dia? Our aim is actually to memperkasakan wanita dan memperjuangkan hak kanak-kanak. So like as you can see here, our latest project is CIC project, di mana we actually help the D11 in IPK Johor Bahru to get the new recording machine for the victim. Alright,
Oh,
so we really this CIC project, and um it was a
oh, ada
success.
Atika ada one last question.
Yes. Oh, adalah. Okay. Alright. Let me see.
Just nak tanya, kalau it's about mental illness, not sexual harassment, macam mana? Can you please clarify, Puan Mariana? Are you saying that because of mental illness, dia jadi sexual predator? Ataupun individu, you're talking about an individual with mental illness? I'm not sure. Which one are you talking about? Because kalau penjenayah biasa, let's say bukan pasal seks, dia ada history of mental illness, itu perkara yang berbeza jika dibandingkan dengan seorang pemangsa seksual yang ada mental illness. Two different things. So just to clarify, what do you mean by this?
Oh, okay, doktor. Maybe saya cubalah menyalami minda Puan Mariana. Maybe she's talking about what if the sex offenders was once a victim.
No, kalau it's about mental illness, not sexual harassment macam mana? Mungkin kena minta pencerahan because kalau pemangsa macam as you explain just now, Atika, kalau pemangsa tu pernah menjadi mangsa, this does not excuse tingkah laku dia apabila dewasa sebagai pemangsa seksual orang lain. Okay? It is sad, it is horrific that pemangsa asalnya adalah seorang mangsa dan memang ada yang berlaku macam tu, namun bukan semua pemangsa mempunyai pengalaman sebagai mangsa. Okay? Just because you're a mangsa, tak bererti you will become pemangsa in future. Only if conditions are suitable, only if there is already traits, there is a tendency towards ke arah ke situ, barulah. Okay? Ex-husband saya banyak tanya soalan kat anak dia yang duduk dengan saya. He is not diagnosed but very pushy. Okay. Kalau berkaitan dengan mental disorder, which is actually keluar daripada skop hari ini, mental disorder ni dia ada 8 kluster besar dan bawah 8 kluster tu ada lebih daripada 300 diagnosis. So it's still tak berapa clear. Kalau yang Puan kata dia sangat pushy pun, ada banyak mental illness yang ada simptom-simptom pushy tu. Okay, so it's not that easy.
Maybe ex-husband dia banyak tanya soalan yang sexual, I mean like that makes the daughter uncomfortable maybe. So they starting to think yang maybe,
Itu kiranya si lelaki tu yang, si ex-husband tu yang masalah sebab dia begitu buruk sangka. Syakwa sangka yang bukan main sampai dia seolah-olah paranoid. Dia memang ada hak nak tanya mengenai keselamatan anak-anak dia. Tak dinafikan. Tapi soalan yang ditanyakan tu, maybe it's because of paranoid. Itu yang bertanya-tanya. Dia memikirkan bahawa persetaran anak dia tidak selamat. Lagi-lagilah dengan keadaan sekarang ni, okay, dengan internet, akses sebagainya, so makes it possibility the child is terlampau banyak exposure to situations whereby jenayah seperti itu mungkin berlaku dan dia takut bagi anak dia. Possible. Tapi boleh juga di mana pemikiran ex-husband tersebut tu memang bermain-main dengan perkara yang negatif. Okay? So yeah, it can be paranoid. So the only way to make sure is to get this person assess dekat psychiatry. Kena pergi dekat klinik ataupun hospital kerajaan yang ada psychiatric ward. Dia tak boleh pergi klinik swasta. Tak laku
Okay,
kat
betul.
mahkamah. Tak laku kat mahkamah. So you bayar RM2,000 ke, RM20,000 ke, minta doktor swasta do assessment, dapat result, pergi mahkamah, still mahkamah will say pergi klinik kerajaan. So you got to do it klinik kerajaan to be sure. Because there's 8 big clusters and lebih kurang 300 jenis. So someone who's being paranoid may act irrational, but not all the time. Dia ikut jenis paranoia yang dia ada. Okay, so I hope that clears up because that's beyond the scope of today, of tonight.
Yeah. Prof, maybe dia nak tanya, I mean like what can she and her daughter do to protect themselves from the ex-husband?
Biasanya kalau paranoid ni dia ada dua. Pertama, sama ada is just verbal, and kedua sama dia physically act. So yang lebih bahaya is physically act. Kalau dia verbal, you can call it as nuisance and harassment. So you can lodge a report to get interim protection order. So di mana individu itu tak boleh nak hubungi lagi. Jika dia hubungi ahli keluarga, the ex-wife and the child, then it can become court case. Tak perlu pun nak ugut, saya akan buat police report, pergi buat je. Kalau nak jaga keselamatan, so in that cover note to police mengatakan bahawa ex-husband duk kacau gini-gini, saya lakukan report ini untuk menjaga keselamatan saya dan anak saya. Kalau kacau lagi, make another police report and mohon siasatan dilakukan terhadap orang ini atas hasutan or whatever, and let the police do their job. Okay? Other than that, of course, change numbers. Yang paling drastic pun berpindah. It is as if you're playing into the hands of the paranoid individual. But the most important element is your protection, is your safety. So if you've gone through all sort of methods to get away from this individual dan tak berjalan juga, then if you got to move, you got to move. Because you have to consider not only your life, but the life of your children. Paling senang, of course, make police report. So sekurang-kurangnya apa yang berlaku selepas itu, maklumat kepada polis dah ada. So you're safe. Okay, another option, kalau bagi audience yang nak tahu, ini adalah khas untuk wanita. Maybank, saya bukan seorang yang nak buat marketing atau apa-apa ya. So Maybank sebenarnya ada offer specific insurance for females. Nama dia Persona. It's very minimal, setahun berapa saya tak berapa ingat. Tapi dia bergantung kepada umur wanita tersebut. Jika menjadi mangsa keganasan rumah tangga, you'll get RM500. Not to say biarlah anda jadi mangsa, no. But there is a coverage. So say for example, jika anda keluarkan duit daripada ATM, and then dalam berapa meter jarak daripada ATM tu, you kena mangsa ragut, Maybank covers you up to RM1,000. Of course kalau bawa keluar RM2,000, setakat RM1,000 je lah. Something better than nothing. So for women protection, so far Maybank Persona offers that. So if you lahirkan anak kembar 2 ke, macam-macam lah, it's very good. I would definitely recommend that as a backup. Because sometimes women in abusive relationship, mereka keluar rumah selai sepinggang, IC penggemukan tak ada, so kena buat police report and all that stuff. If you have that insurance, at least you have some money to start. Okay, so I hope that helps.
Yes,
Okay.
betul. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, alright. Okay. Alright. Okay, jadi saya sambung balik tentang kita punya closing statement. Alright. So back to about Jewel. So for your information, kita memang ada involved with the CIC project over here to get the new interview machine for the kids. Sebab kalau ikutkan, before the interview machine was there, yang dekat Johor ni dia terpaksa buat rakaman Melaka di Negeri Sembilan ataupun ke Bukit Aman sendiri, and it really drags.
Yeah, of course. time consuming,
Yeah,
definitely.
yeah. And like untuk whoever yang buat laporan, they have to wait sebab dia kena poll kan all these people
Of course.
ramai-ramai, you know, so it will take like around 2 minggu. But
Yeah.
now with the new recording machine, daripada Melaka pula yang datang, you know, like kita dah berjaya untuk record pada waktu itu, and our IPK Johor, the D11 is very effective now. Very, very efficient. Okay. Dulu dah efficient dah, tapi sekarang dia jadi very efficient. Alright. So selain daripada tu, Jiwa punya work juga kita buat.
Okay. So hopefully it will improve conditions, and the situation will
Yeah.
improve not only for Johor but other states as well lah.
Yes, yes. That is what we are trying to do lah sebab, yeah. Alright. And then kita pun ada buat advocacy work whereby dekat sini kita collaborate dengan university students and we teach them
Okay.
how to break away from the silence of child abuse, especially sexual abuse. Like macam mana if you punya kawan come out with you, you know, and tell you that they pernah menjadi mangsa, like what can you help them, and then we try to put them in this situation where apakah perasaan mangsa masa dia di abuse. Alright. And then we also do a butterfly run. This is also last year, 2019. This awareness, kita ada school children, as you can see here, they all run and they make a lot of banners themselves. They lukis sendiri, you know, macam sayangkan anak and everything, and it was very touchy. Sebab they were very energetic walaupun dalam hujan, diorang lari. You know, so at that time hujan and we thought like maybe dia tak payah lari lah juga, you know, but no, they run, you know, and they really like it. Okay, and then over here we have Jiwa members from multi-discipline and multi-agency. Kita ada lay counselor, kita ada psychologist, kita ada doktor, kita ada nurse, kita ada, yes, yeah. Kita ada travel agents. So we have many people from multi disciplines, and whenever a case comes, case child sexual abuse, usually diorang memang sangat-sangat takut and the parents were in shock and in denial. So instead of going to the government, dia akan come to us first untuk dapatkan advice and untuk dapatkan that moral support that if we are going to do this, then I want, you know, I ada backup dekat belakang I, that I am not alone in this. So that is what we do. So selain daripada mangsa child sexual abuse, kita juga membantu, macam saya cakapkan, memperkasakan wanita, whereby kita banyak juga a lot of domestic violence cases, but when they are really go to really escape and they are very determined, we help them.
Oh, that's good. Yeah.
So memang kita cakap dengan dia, you make sure kalau kita tolong you, kita di belakang you, you don't ever tarik report, you know, like, you know, so they're like, yes, I'm sure, because a lot of them yang kita jumpa, they were like, saya nak melakukan ini, like I want to get away and I want to break free, but I never have anybody to support me, you know. But when they contact us, they get that courage and we help them go through that. And also, kalau tengokkan yang case hari ni, we help with the documentation as well. Okay, so this mother and her son adalah anak Malaysia tetapi tiada birth certificate. So she was treated like a party and she was just going to run away from the hospital and tinggalkan anak dia there. Luckily, the person yang melahirkan anak dia is Jiwa members. You know, the doctor is a Jiwa members, and so we got this case and we help her lah.
Oh, very lucky.
We help her turn her life around, and now she's this is a very good news. Dia dah dapat dia punya IC. Okay, memang susah sebab kita kena track dia punya family, and then kita kena buat ujian DNA, and actually saya Azmi also help in funding for this girl punya new life, and now she's about to marry. Because alright. Jadi we really need your help to continue to support us, please donate to our CIMB bank account 8601567402 at Pertubuhan Pergerakan Wanita Johor Projects. And you can contact Puan Priya or email kepada Cik Liza for the receipt so that we know. And if you ever want to look out for our website, you can go to www.johormalaysia.org to see more about us and our activities and what we do. Okay, so that's it for tonight. Thank you all viewers for watching. Minggu depan kita ada lagi Let's Talk series untuk episode 7. And thank you very much Prof. I hope you tak serik. Next time I'm going to ask you again and maybe bila MCO dah over, we can do it in physical, you know. And or maybe we can do it at you know, macam if you prefer Cisco, we will try and maybe we will try to get a more target audience. Right? Okay. Thank you everybody.
Alright. Okay.
Alright.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye.